Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our Water Cooler Gossip Q&A. This is obviously our lunchtime type shows that we run, talking over things that have been happening recently in the game. Tom, very lowest of men here, and I've been very fortunate to be away to go and play in Poland very recently, going and playing at the Pyra Cup the weekend just before last, which was a really, really incredible experience. We've got Ed, I think, hopefully joining us in just a moment to chat through some of that and thinking a little bit about the team's meta as we saw it out there as well, some of the surprises and some of the not so much surprises. And I'm obviously very happy to answer lots of questions from you guys about how it went and what we learned and other different things. And I'll do a little bit of a recap of how I found the event myself before Ed gets here as well. I think the slight sadness of having done an awful lot of preparation for Pyra. I was actually really unwell for the entire event. Hello to Stanley Peddle in the chat. Lovely to have you here. Well done on your event with the GSC, the mighty GSC, very recently. So I'd landed on an army quite late for Pyra. We were sort of searching through options, and it's very difficult. You're trying to zero in on something that can play into New Eldar, something that can play into Guard, something that can play into Slaanesh. These are difficult assignments to cover all the way across an army. And in the event, the one that we went with, we tested a couple of different options. The one we went with was Vanguard Onslaught Tyranids, which was a really cool faction. I really enjoyed playing it. Lots of Gene Stealers, lots of aggro, lots of Raveners, Lictors, these sorts of things. And we found in practice that this was working well into Tactical Orcs. This was working well into Eldar. It was covering a lot of the kind of flakier, lighter options in the game really, really effectively. And it was a little bit more vulnerable into the sort of the big skew and the heavy skew type stuff, but it was generally very effective at taking on the lighter targets in the game, and you could put people under quite a lot of pressure with it, which I was really enjoying. Now, in the event, I was feeling pretty sick for most of Pyra. Actually, executing on this was a little bit harder than in practice. I'd had a great time in practice, lots of good results, but I think the results were definitely more mixed for the Vanguard Onslaught Tyranids in practice, and it's a little bit difficult to untangle how much was me struggling to be alive and still standing up in the games, and how much was that was their place in the meta. But one thing we definitely did encounter was that using Vanguard Onslaught Tyranids in pairings, it was a little bit dependent on keeping away from kind of mech skew type stuff. It didn't like that at all. And actually, there was still one or two of the teams, actually not the very sort of strongest teams that we were prepped for, but some of the other teams who still had like big skew type options in their list. And that was where the Vanguard struggled a little bit, and we had to kind of try and keep it away, or ultimately burn it in a couple of rounds to deal with that as well. But I was really impressed with the Vanguard Onslaught Tyranids. I think in general they're in a really fun spot. I think Tyranids players have obviously played a lot of Invasion Fleet, but actually I was very impressed with the threat that offers and the tempo that offers you, and the reach that gets you as well. I'll just check how Ed is getting on. And obviously, if you guys have any questions at all vis-a-vis Pyra, please feel free to chuck them in here as well. Ed's warming up his PC, so he'll be with us very shortly. So across our team comp, we had a bunch of really good armies. We had Will Whitaker on Slaanesh. We had Alex Fowler on the Bridgehead Guard. Bridgehead, obviously one of the very successful armies at the event. We had Josh on Tactical Orcs. Oh, here he is. Hello, Edward. How are we doing?
Hello, not too bad, mate. You?
Yeah, I'm all right. Thank you. Yeah, I was just starting to take people through what we took to Pyra.
Fantastic.
And running through where we got up to. So we had Bridgehead with Alex. We had me on the Tyranids. We had Will on the Slaanesh. We had Josh on the Tactical.
Yeah.
And we had Louis Ballington on the BA non-BA, which obviously just went and won the old Manchester GT. So obviously still a good thing, still a very effective.
Very strong. Very strong.
I'm trying to remember what else we had. It feels like most of it, but there's definitely at least one other. Oh, Dan Whitaker on Ynnari. So this was one of the first big events where we had Eldar out in a team setting.
Yes, that was really good. That was exciting because it's the first event that we saw the Eldar, right?
Yeah.
First event we saw the Eldar in. To be fair, it was probably one of the first events that the Eldar book was actually at, right?
Yes.
So it's going to be interesting to see how those kits and pairings sort of line up.
It got on well. I think the book did well. I felt like the book was in a very strong position. I think obviously Dan went the Ynnari route, and we've seen, I think Ynnari is very popular in singles, and I think it just has that way of bamboozling shooty armies that makes it quite difficult to deal with, right? I think the moving out of phase and all this stuff is always very strong.
Yeah.
But there was also obviously the Wind Rider list, Ed, which you
Yes!
you and I were
I love
pretty
that
loving. Yeah, so that was incredible. That was Germany, I want to say. I think.
Yeah, it was Germany. Yeah, it was Germany because I've written my own little version of it, which the damage is a bit nuts. It's a bit nuts.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah, it's delicate, but they're so cheap. It's like you can
Yes.
get all the bikes and have like 1,000 points of Eldar on top, and you're like, oh, okay, this feels fine.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild. So I think that demonstrated. Yeah, I think if you're looking at Eldar in general at the moment, you're like, actually, once you take all the fun stuff out,
Yeah,
the raw cost efficiency of just the basic units is very high, like very good.
yeah.
I think
It's a very aggressively costed like book, I think.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where it can still fall over. It can still get pushed.
Yeah.
It can still do all these. It still has its weaknesses, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which we saw at Manchester over the weekend as well. Which we're not going to go
Yes.
too much about Pyra, but
yeah, but no, we can definitely touch upon it. I think it's interesting because I think that kind of that confirms more of the same, which is that Eldar is not so good that it's just going to run everybody over.
Yeah,
but it's powerful, and especially in a team setting where you can pair it well and you can keep it away from certain things, I think it can be very, very strong.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and so Dan had a really good time with the Inari, and I think he felt like it performed really, really well. So I think in terms of our team comp broadly, we felt like we had quite a lot of players that all like to do the same sort of thing. We're all quite attacky type players. We're all sort of, pair me into something, I'll sort it out kind of players. And I don't think we had quite as much by way as just raw brute force in some of the lists. And I think that was an option that we could have gone down. I think the thing we were trying to work out was whether things like Bridgehead and Tactical and Eldar just kill those sorts of lists off too hard. Didn't seem like they actually did in practice. It seemed like certain skewy things. Death Guard, to an extent, Votan. There were a couple of the armies that took Votan, and it seemed like if you could keep it away from certain things, it could still be very effective. So that was maybe where we were a little bit too far down the clever train, and we found that a little bit impairing. Yeah, exactly. We found that a little bit impairing. Sometimes it's like, okay, no one actually wants to deal with this, and that was a little bit of an issue. So I think. But in the main, we actually we had a really good go at a bunch of good teams, and we had some really good experiences with it. We had a tough day one. Our first two rounds were USA and France.
Yeah,
so that was to get us off on a good first.
It was the hardest two games out of the way, right? That was one of those things.
It was brutal.
Yeah, you live and die by your first two games.
Yeah, it was absolutely ridiculous. So I think we sort of drew the pod, and we had Poland B in those two teams, and then this is a very strong start. We're playing on tipping point for both those first two games, so like long ways deployment, which it's okay, but it's like I think we felt like we couldn't get some of our lists were better when they can get round and exploit the space a bit, and we couldn't do this as much. And I think the USA game was interesting because we paired it, and after pairings we were like, you know what, this looks all right on pairings, looks just fine. And then they were also really happy on pairings, and we're like, oh, okay, so something's definitely wrong. There was a few big games that turned that one. I think Brian's Orcs got a big win out of our Bridgehead. Vanilla got a big win out of Louis on the BA and sort of saw an advantage and took an advantage down the flank and was able to push a big result there.
Yeah, he went for it, didn't he?
Yeah, he absolutely did. So I mean, it's not a shocker that their two big heavy hitters are going to get the results there, but they absolutely did. Hello to Swissley in the chat. Hello to Josh Cowlard in the chat. I hope you're recovering, Josh. I hope you haven't been struck down by the same lurgy I had quite as badly as I had it. I was really very, very sick by the time I got home. I had a nice game against Nicholas on the Eldar, and that was a 10-10 in the end. He was very good at. He just used the long block the whole way through the game. Oh, Alex Fowler's joining us. Here he comes. Look, there he is. Yay! We've got another England attendee has arrived. Wonderful. Love to have you here. And the cat's here as well. Obviously, the cat was at Pyra.
He was there.
The cat had an amazing time.
Cheerleading.
How's it going, gents?
Yeah, good. We're just discussing round one with the USA, Alex.
That one happened.
Yeah.
That happened.
So Alex joining us here was on Bridgehead Guard for us, and that, like myself, he was picking this up for the event, so he was sort of had to get up to speed very quickly. I guess what was the main takeaway from the USA round for you, Alex?
That I was very wrong about that. I played it a couple times.
Yeah,
I smashed it both times, and then I played that map against Josh the night before to set up a table and see how it goes.
Yeah,
like, ooh, the staging's actually quite nasty. This might be hard.
Yeah.
And then I played against Brian, and it was rough because he he showed me how it's done. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
I think
Brian's annoyingly good at Warhammer.
that is often the
He
way.
is.
Yeah. And it's so fascinating how, and that was something I definitely found in the games as well. Is like the way different matchups are played by different people. It just completely changes the complexion. That you can do all your prep in practice, but if you practice against somebody who plays it a certain way, and then you go up against somebody who completely turns that on its head, it's really, really rough. But we were saying that was just us getting our eye in, right? That's fine. Round 1's okay. We don't panic about round 1. We got a nice easy round 2 where we got the French on Purge the Foe. On the same map.
Yeah,
it's just really
Even better.
cursed. It's just really cursed. And that felt very very unpleasant as well. I mean, I can't remember who did you play in this round.
I played Quentin Rocher.
Nice.
Ganesh,
Okay.
and I was gifted. We kept me until third defender, or maybe even in the swing,
Yeah.
to try and hit something hard and get a big score.
Mm-hmm.
And I think their first defender took a heavy board.
Yeah.
The Marines, which left table 8 tipping, the ridiculous one.
Yeah.
To the bottom. And so I think I was one of the last 3 pairings, and I was like, oh, I'm playing Slanesh. Oh God, on the last 3 pairings, this is not going to be good. And I got told it was table 8, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Table 8, which is you get shot on table 8, guys, is how it works. Yeah. And this was something we'd always tried to make sure we had a plan if we needed it in different pairings to get table 8 sorted out and get different people on it. Because it's just incredibly shooty. It's very hard to push up on anyone without getting shot. So did that mitigate the threat of the Slanesh a little bit then, Alex?
It did somewhat, but then still, keepers are keepers, and it was and they just didn't die, and I had to use my idiots and my tanks to stop them coming at me. And so even though I dominated the game, I dominated the board, I killed all of his stuff, I kept a lot of my stuff alive, we lost stuff at similar rates where enough that he drew or beat me every round. And so I wasn't able to push the score in as hard as I wanted. And making it worse, I had multiple times where I needed to set up fractions and then needed to use those units' shootings to finish off some units that would then screw me up quite a lot. So I didn't manage to push as big a score as I would have liked, but it was still quite a good game. It felt quite good.
Purge can be a difficult one to prosecute on, I think. It really does depend a bit on the matchup. And
Bridgehead's very much a late game army. Purge is you want to get your opponent beat early.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, absolutely. And we had a couple of this was the French list that had the Inari with the 10 incubi brick, I think. So we found out firsthand what that did. That's a spicy list. Very, very violent.
I'm sitting it with a Venom. I've seen it with like 5 Venom, like 5 incubi and a Venom with an Archon just being like, oh, you killed a unit. Oh, we're 12.1 away. Look, I'm going to throw something at you. But doing an incubi is just a bit violent. No need for it.
It really is unpleasant. It's very... I mean, that's a build I want to try because obviously I love sending incubi around, and some of the reach, the uppercuts that are possible.
It's insane. The unit of 6... The Windrider host list, really, really amazing. And kind of carried by decent shooting on all of the bikes.
Yeah.
And the bikes are quick.
Yeah.
They're quick in Windrider host. Oh my God, they are quick in Yanari, because you're like, okay, so I need to worry about a 36-inch range set of 30 shots or whatever it is that could potentially, at the end of my shooting phase and then in their movement, move 32 inches.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. And it feels like, I don't know how, like if you go first against that on something like Purge, where you're like, oh, so basically I'm going to do a kill because I need to get my points, and then that's going to let you do everything you could possibly want, which you'll then use to outkill me, and we'll just do that in a pattern for the entire game. So I think that was a very tough one. I played against that was Louis, I think. So Louis had a very tough start to the weekend, got a couple of really quite tough situations. I was playing against I think I want to say his name was Nico, who's on the guard, and that was a frustrating one because I went first, and I was just like, it's just we both got idiots, but you know how many idiots you need to kill, and I struggled to get out of the situation. I had a couple of very good turns where I killed a bunch, and he still managed to kill his way back into it. And then I had two turns where like one guardsman lived. So I was trying not to give up loads of kills. I was
so
every single time you got one idiot makes his 5 up or 6.
Yeah.
Still
I
there.
was having that with the chariots, man. The chariots. I was shooting the chariots and I was getting them down to 2 wounds to get my kill more. And then he was like, I'll just pass them off onto the keeper.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh! It's just absolutely maddening.
That's like a battleship and heel. Stop it! Just stop it!
It's just so bad.
But yeah, the French are pretty good at Warhammer.
Yeah, they were good. They were very good. Did they win the event in the end? Did the French win? The French did take the win, so they're still very much on the top of their game. And I think in both those rounds, we kind of felt like they just had a very slick pairing game, right? They knew what they were doing in terms of pairing things up, and they were very relaxed and just very confident in their knowledge on the matrix and stuff. And they always found a couple of games in there that we didn't see, and then we got caught out, and that tended to be the way.
Like the Orcs one.
Yeah, exactly.
And my confidence waned a bit going in.
Yeah.
Massively confident.
Yeah. It's difficult though, isn't it?
Made one mistake and it just slipped. But yeah, it was a good round.
Josh Cowland says, I hear sustained 2 bikes in a French accent in my sleep after that round. Yeah, so Josh played into the French Votan. Again, me and Josh have played Votan Orcs a few times, and it had to be fair. It had been it could be peaky for the Orcs, and I think obviously this French Votan player had a little bit more patience for executing it properly than I have with the Votan. Because the Votan one thing that definitely came out this weekend was if you get it right and pair it right, these Votan lists can definitely still hang, which I think is really interesting. It was not something I was necessarily expecting. I think they do have to duck and weave a little bit, but they are certainly very good. Oh, here he comes. We're just gradually adding people in. This is absolute. There he is. So we have the lovely Matt Bell of Glasshammer joining us.
Look how close the camera is to his face.
So zoomed in.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us, Matt?
I can't hear a single thing.
Oh no! Okay. Well, Matt, check your settings for your audio and for your audio input and output on FMUX in just a second. Oh dear, Matt was our mascot for the weekend. He came as coach, and he was a very, very big part of keeping us all cheerful and entertained, especially on the Saturday night when we were feeling a bit sorry for ourselves. Matt,
that was great. I was in fits.
Matt was very, very, very drunk. Extremely fun. Matt Carragher says extreme close up. Yeah, well, that's Matt. Anyway, it was Matt's good value and entertainment. And
we heard a lot of stories about your and Matt's games, Ed.
Yes, we did. God. Yeah, Matt told us.
Remind us every 15 minutes.
Basically, he's like, I'll just pass like 11 out of 13 for him. That's average, Ed. I'll just wind him up. I'll wind him up with it. And then he'll moan about it. It's funny.
So good. So good. And so that was our first 2 rounds. I think we'd lost pretty heavily to the USA. I think we didn't lose by anything like as much into France. I think that was a much closer round. Let me get the best. I'll get best coast pairing up. And it will definitely.
I think we got 40 something into the US and
I think it was 47
France.
There you go. We're growing into the game, guys. We're basically there.
Growing in.
We're basically there at that point. And so this was the time for us to get a slightly more easy round, and what we got was Poland B. And Poland, obviously, found one of the best teams in the world at 40k, so both their teams very, very dangerous. I'm just going to remind myself. It's also worth saying, in the background of all of this, our Sinesh Wilwich, because Sinesh was just murdering people. He didn't get the win in the first round, but he then went on a smashing spree for the remainder.
We got quite unlucky in the first round because he went first, charged a Dread Knight.
Yeah.
And set up to kill it, shot something else that then blew up, killed the Dread Knight that he'd set up to charge and just envelop.
Yeah.
And so it could have been
glorious, but it didn't work out.
Something went massively wrong for him.
Yeah. But he got back on the horse and he started murdering things pretty aggressively, and he beat up Arno on the Necrons. Arno, as people will know, went deep at War Masters and obviously won the WTC last year, so it was a good scout for him. So that was one of the highlights on that round. So we dug up to 58 points, clawing our way up, and then we had Poland B. And I think on Poland B, pairings went pretty smoothly. I think I was the collateral. I got paired into Chaos Knights, which I cannot hack or eat. But I think we felt like we'd got quite a large number of good wins on pairings. Otherwise. Alex, you got to play Slanesh again, didn't you?
I got given the Slanesh again, which was exhausting, but good. And it was fine.
But you got more points out of it this time. Did the mission help a little bit in that sense?
One more, yeah. It was another one where I couldn't push it any harder.
Yeah.
I'd Matrixed a loss because if he just front lines and goes for it, I thought I'd be screwed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, it's peak. It could go very wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he had Be'lakor, so he just deployed everything in 6 of Be'lakor. Didn't say anything about it during deployment. And I was like, oh yeah, Bellacor's got the lone op order. Right, I'll deploy my mortars like this. I pre-measured them into the D minutes. I went first. And I was like, right, I'll fire some mortars. Oh. No. The army was on one side of the board in the Be'lakor aura.
Yeah.
And he was just going to play for his one objective and had second turn. So I couldn't push him in. Into it, I killed what came out and locked down my objective, but
yeah, that's an interesting one. I feel like he wants the nest to kind of come at you and make more happen than that. I guess he's keeping it safe, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's also value in having value in someone coming over and going, right, the rest of the pairings have gone like this. If you just keep it stable, what's the outcome? They might have thought their pairings were decent, and he probably set up to play for that, like, small loss drawy sort of situation. Yeah, second, and that's why he probably goes, if I just play everything with Ranger Be'lakor and sit on 2 objectives and take you off the middle,
yeah,
it's fine. And
exactly.
That was probably the game plan.
Yeah, exactly. And that was something I should have been paying attention to. We'll get to that in a moment. So I think so. Alex got a nice stable win. Danny Porter got a decent win. Dan Whittaker got a good win. Will Whittaker got a 20 over some Chaos Space Marines. And the rest of our other scores were pretty stable. We had a sad times for Josh Cowlard against the GC the Colts, where I don't know exactly what happened. Josh, you're in the chat, you'll let us know. So I think something involving Average just not dying happened, and then the GC the Colts got the best of him. And then into the Chaos Knights, I was too aggressive against Chaos Knights. I knew I wasn't going to get many points, but I was pushing out trying to get a few more, and I just ran out of puff way too early. Do you ever have one of those moments where you sort of start realizing you're like a turn? It's like a turn earlier than you thought it was, and you're like, "Oh, I'm really dead. Like I'm really dead. Like if I've lost this much stuff at this stage, and I've still got this many turns to get through, this is going to go really, really badly." So Max, who was playing the Chaos Knights, executed that really well, and yeah, we were talking about it afterwards, and I was just too pushy. I think I killed a lot of baby knights, which I think with the Vanguard Nids isn't too bad, but I just never... I fell just short of dropping him down to that number of nights where they stopped being able to play the game. I was just on the edge of that, and then I never quite made it. And then obviously, because he holds with enough nights, he gets loads of primary in the final 2 turns and pulls well ahead. He did sneaky... there's one like... Carnivore on 1 wound falling back through my lines to completely screw my primary in the middle of the game as well. It was really painful on Lynchman. You're just like, oh no, that's so bad.
Just no need for that, is there?
Don't need that guy to be alive.
Just don't do that.
But so that was a shellacking for the Vanguard. But it's one of the sort of matchups they really don't like. But we got the round win. We got 88-72. So I think we had a bit of insurance, even though 1 or 2 of the games swung away from us. We paired very happily, and that set us off in relatively good spirits end of day 1, didn't we? I mean, I think we were all feel like we were learning a lot, Alex, on the go. I don't know how you were feeling.
Yeah, end of Saturday was mental. It felt like, I mean, we were all sat down at the table for dinner, and it was like, I feel like it was just like a couple of hours ago when I just got out of bed, because it'd been
a whirlwind.
Up, get your models at the table, you're doing all the pairings, boom, and then straight into the next one, because all my rounds went to like within 15 minutes of the end. And we had no lunch break. So lunch just came in the second round. Yeah. And they were like, you can take 10 minutes on your clock, pause the clock for 10 minutes and eat. That's fine. But there was no like proper sitting down to...
It's worth saying that it's an amazing hotel. You've got this incredible setup. We've driven through from Germany into Poland. You're in this fantastic, lovely hotel. You've got all the Poles there, and so some of the old Pole vets were there coaching the US, like Typhus and Pumba were coaching for the US.
Which is why they got their parents
murking. And you're in this lovely building. As Alex says, everything comes at you very fast. The rounds are very fast turnaround. Food is kind of dripping in as you go, so it does feel very, very relentless. And by the time you're all suddenly just sat there at the end on Saturday night, it's just slightly shell shocked. So to have played France and the US and then a Polish team all in one day is pretty wild. Like, that was quite intensive.
It was.
So the Rick and Morty meme with Rick and Morty are in the ship and they start crying.
Yeah, it was a bit like that. It was a bit like that. Yeah, it definitely was. And so we didn't have much time. I mean, there was some drinking and some chatting. Matt Bell was very, very drunk, so it's a shame you can't all get to hear about his anecdotes from him firsthand. But he was on glorious form. And then we were straight back into it the next day, and we had, because of the way that the rounds had worked out in the first day, we knew we were going to play Poland, so more Poland, and we were also going to play the Netherlands. So we got the Netherlands, I think, were round 1 of the day.
Yeah.
And this went very, very smoothly, I think, broadly speaking. If you look at it, I think we're pretty happy on scores. I ate the Sonesh. I was on brief to get some points. I got very, very aggressively bent over by Florian with triple keepers. That's really good,
Triple keepers. It's just...
So again, it's a sort of... We had a few theories going in. This is something Greg and I had talked about as far as Sonesh goes. And one of the things... So this was on the list of problems we were trying to solve, and I think I'd shifted away from that and been thinking more about Eldar and Guard, and I guess reflecting who I was practicing into, so I hadn't done as much on it. But Zone Throat Break, really good at killing keepers. So we killed a keeper, very happy with that. But he was desperately trying to keep my primary completely shut off, but I kept battle shocking things and getting primary anyway, and he was getting very annoyed by that across the game. And there are some amazing moments in that where things like he runs a brick of fiends into a brick of GC and goes, "Oh, you can hit me first." And I go, "Okay, well, battle shock you." He fails it. I go, "Oh, did you want to pass the wounds off?" Well, you can't now. So my GC brick just completely eats 6 fiends for absolutely no need in his turn, which is really, really funny. So you had these little moments, but it was still, I think it was on the take and hold, and it was on the sort of pancake type deployment where you can just absolutely hammer them. And Florian played this very well, and I did not get many points at all. But fortunately, with the way everything else had lined up on pairings, we were fine. Will Whittaker got a big old score out of the GSC. Josh beat some Eldari up. Raf blunted their tactical. Louis got a win. It doesn't say what Louis was playing against. Danny smashed up some Custodies. And yourself, you got to play some Tyranids, didn't you, Alex?
I got to play some Nids. Yeah, that was a scary game because he was on the edge of just full shoving me every turn and didn't go for it.
Yes.
We had enough big bugs that I couldn't chew through them, and then he could just get in and get to me. He didn't do it. Unfortunately, I went first, so I wasn't able to push it any harder.
Yeah. That was an interesting one, isn't it? And I think we saw how Tyranids can be a bit of a pain for the Guard in different ways.
They do die.
Absolutely. But they have a lot of stuff, don't they?
We were on the super violent board.
Yeah.
And he was staged to go for it every turn. So the end of every turn, I was reporting it's going okay, but if he does this, it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
But he was on track to try and get an 8. He got 7, and he just played for that.
Yeah, exactly. I think we were talking before, and I thought that was probably roughly how that would go for him.
I went first 4 times at Pyra, and I just
sad
in any games.
Yeah.
And Bridgehead really, really likes to go second.
Yeah.
Boom, that thing's dead.
Yeah, I was first against the Sinesh as well. It was like, well, I'm going to get some points now, and then I'm going to be very dead, unfortunately. I put Gargoyles in the way of him, and I was like, ha, there you go. That buys me at least a turn of some primary before all the knife work begins. So yeah, it was interesting. Hello, Harley's in the chat. Shout out Harley, he won a GT with the Eldar this weekend. Very well done. Very well done to him. I believe he's going to be recording an event report with Chris about that very soon. So I mean, this round, yeah, I think in terms of the overall pairings, pretty comfortable, pretty happy. Our Eldar beat up their Astra Militarum. So we just had a very good suite of matchups across the board, and I think we were fairly happy in the execution of all of them as well. Which meant that we were suddenly on a couple of wins and hunting a third going into the final round, where we got to play against Poland A. And Poland A were on the warpath themselves. But actually, in practice, this round was very, very tight. So I think pairings-wise, we felt like we'd paired just under or close to the draw.
Did we predict an 80?
I think it was in that territory, wasn't it? And then a couple of results fell away. We had, I think my favourite one of these is Kruker against Will, where essentially like Kruker is literally playing, and this was exactly what I'd just had with the Sinesh in the previous round. Like Kruker is literally playing like a list he's designed to take on Sinesh, and Will Whittaker just goes, 20's it. And you're sort of like, I think one of the, I mean, I think it'd be interesting. I think the experience that you and I both had, Alex, would confirm if you are building for Sinesh, combat armies just can't do it. Like combat armies are not the one. Like you can build all this tech in, you can have your plan, you can have all these things you think you're going to do, and actually, if you go to where they want you to go and come and play their game,
they'll just fight you.
Horrific.
They will do it better than you.
So I think you have to really shoot them to bits. Seems to be the most important. That and the blocking. Block them and shoot them to bits seems to be the killer things.
Yeah, it's a very good recipe for that.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was so upsetting. I couldn't push it any.
What did you get in this final one? You got.
I played the Green Tide, which was
yes, you did. Yes, so lots of orc bodies.
Like
how was that?
200 models, 120 boys.
Yeah.
30 commandos, and then like 60 Gretchen or something. Oof. And it was just, it was just like, it's gonna score.
Yeah.
And I was worried if he just lines up 30 commandos on the line and sends me in wars turn 1, that would have been really nasty.
Would have been tempting.
He didn't do that. He just played really great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what I would have done if I was playing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went first. He was super far away. I locked down an objective for a little bit, and then his war turn, the jump unit comes down, all the other units come down, the Gretchen that moved 12 plus an advance with that character come to near my deployment zone, and I'm just digging myself out. And I failed 2 desperate escape tests on Tauroxes to deny primary, which was extremely upsetting, because I had my Tauroxes pushed out to screen, and he'd charged them, not killed them, and he'd been playing all of his bricks off of the objectives and just put his lone ops on for 1 OC. So he'd sticky them and then run off and keep the lone op on. And so if my Taurox just passed Desperate Escape twice, I would have been able to get a little bit of a higher score. But yeah, it was a very interesting game. That many Orc boys, it was a lot of bodies. And all blood surges as well.
Yeah, I think it's one of the interesting things. I didn't quite track how tactical got on, but I feel like maybe with orcs, some of the other detachments, although they don't give you the consistency of tactical, they give you different kinds of ins, and they sort of skew into different things like Warhorde and Green Tide, even Bully Boys. Now, tactical is this interesting thing where I think people are very, very ready for it now, and it's whether you can actually get more interesting options in your matrix from skewing away from that. I think
the Green Tide is a really interesting
matrix,
because there's games where you can just, like, if you need to get a big win, you can just line up 30 commandos and then to jump turn 1, and just you're like, I'm making this charge, and if I don't, I'm going to lose hard.
Yeah.
Make the charge, and it's going to be a 20.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great fun.
Absolutely. So we had a couple of good scores. We had Will Whisker getting his big score into the Space Wolves, and then we had, I think, Dan beats Death Guard quite heavily. We were playing on Scorched Earth, so this one was a tough one to get big scores on. You had to really prosecute very aggressively. But then we had a few things go against us. We had some CSM got through the GSC. The World Eaters got brutalised by Skark's Guard. And the Orcs Nest, which, to be fair, I think we paired that one knowing it's kind of flippy and could go in either direction, but in the end it went against Josh here. And the Eldari for them picked up Louis' BA pretty aggressively as well. And I got a 10-10. I got to play against Leshu on the Grey Knights on the Warpbane, and we got a 10-10 that we needn't have played. It was one of those classics. I was like, he's going to table me, but I can put a Nid army all over the board and not let him teleport anywhere relevant for most of the game and get loads of points, and then he'll catch up at the end. And that was exactly how it went. Really, really good game. And I was impressed with Warpbane. I can see the function of it. He had the little interceptors jump out of a Razorback, tee up the indirect shooting, then they fire and fade back into the Razorback. I was like, don't like that at all. Really, so I went and killed that Razorback, and the interceptor was like, stop doing that, don't like that, not a fan of that at all.
That indirect will kill Gene Stealers.
Oh mate, it was he got one turn where he activated all 3 of them onto a Gene Stealer brick, and I was like, oh, that's not good, that's really, really bad. Like that just absolutely murders its way through the pure strength. And it was one of those, he played it beautifully. He stood right off the line, he didn't let me get any connects early in the game, and then but it was very difficult for him to push the score either, because he just couldn't get out until he'd sort of really worked his way through all the threats, and Gargoyles doing gargoyle things out there as well. So that was us, and we fell just shy of the draw in the end. I think we were 4 or 5 points out.
Very close.
And I think we came away from that one feeling like, there was a result there, and that was actually quite reassuring. I think we had a really rough day one, but it felt like then in the remainder of the games we really grew into the games and we were close to it. So I guess I'm curious, Alex, what you're sort of feeling now. Now you've had a week or so to actually process and think about it. How do you feel about how it went for us, and what do you think the sort of key lessons and takeaways for us as a team were?
I think it went about as we should have expected.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
To be honest,
if you told me on paper how I thought those games would go, I would have guessed the results that we had. I think pretty much.
Yeah, I'm looking back on it disappointed to not have drawn or beaten Poland for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I'm disappointed in myself that I wasn't able to push anything harder, and then I got something massively wrong early. But it was an amazing event, and it was really good fun. Mm-hmm. And the work that we did do, we did a lot of prep.
Yeah, we did.
And we did a lot of prep that was probably, I don't know if there is a right answer, but we explored a lot of different avenues and tried different things for different sorts of reasons. But there was definitely a winning formula in there. That was really, we were very close with Death Guard, with the suggestion of Bile, with some of our other armies and comps, and skewing a little harder as well. I think that's the big thing for me, is we should have just skewed harder everywhere.
Skewing is good.
You get a lot of room to do that in an 8, because the harder everyone skews, the more your coach has a chance to show their pairing skill. By, the game's very drawish at the minute.
It really is. Yeah.
Oh, you went second on Scorch, so you won by 10 points. Okay. That's just the story of everyone's life. I mean, it happened at Manchester this weekend, just gone, right?
Yeah.
Building skew would have let us punish things harder.
I agree.
Maybe be punished harder when we would have had another big loss.
But it's on us to then to pair around that, right? Exactly. I think we had a few rounds. We had a few rounds where we couldn't see where we were going to get the big scores to sort of dig out rounds, and I think that was definitely the lesson, as you say. It's like, if you are going to build different options in, go really hard into those options.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anything that we had in there. I think maybe the World Eaters. On pick alone, you look at it and go, does that have enough redeeming it to make it worth putting Wrath through that?
We should have seen its matrix and gone, maybe we need to look at another option.
Yeah.
Because the matrix across the board of...
And then I think with the NIDs, we definitely, I mean, as I say, because Sam Pope had a good run with the NIDs, with the Vanguard NIDs. So that was in some ways reassuring. It's like, we were in the right ballpark, but we didn't have the right build and the right version.
And I think the reason that Sam did well was he had more room to get his good matchups, because other things on their team comp was so skewed to do a thing well.
Exactly.
That certain things didn't want to play, like the plane or the warp plane, or Brian's Orcs.
Yeah,
and
that creates space.
Something that gets eaten massively by nits.
Yeah, completely. And that was the interesting thing, isn't it?
In the conceptual stage.
Yes.
Before you've actually matrixed and paired and played, to know that that's a problem.
No, completely. It's sort of seeing, until you're literally looking at how your 8 armies see another 8, and they're like, actually, this is the issue. This is the issue. Yeah. Or we all think this is good, but that doesn't help us because we can't all eat that, etc., etc., etc. And so it's sort of seeing it in totality, isn't it? And I think it's one where I think we would learn a lot and do it differently. One thing I think we were right on, and I think a lot of the other teams were right on as well, is that you didn't need that leaf blower gun line thing. There didn't need to be that brainless lightboard list. I think there was some shooty lists, don't get me wrong, Bridgehead shooty, and there was some shooty marine builds, etc. But the sort of straight out and out just lightboard defender type list wasn't really a thing at the event, which was quite interesting.
A problem as we thought it could have been.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. And then, as I say, there were a couple of surprise stars. I think it was interesting to see that Votan were performing well. So in Germany, they've got Tim, who's just doesn't ever seem to lose with Votan.
They have a bit of a Votan cult over there.
They do, and it's the sort of it's the 20 berserks double fort. It's a very here's my meat and potatoes. So that was interesting to see. And then I think the Eldar one was interesting because I think Ynnari did very well and emerged very well out of this.
Ynnari are just ridiculous.
They're just super strong.
Because it's a lot of mental capacity on yourself, but all you have to do is find the right answer.
Yes.
Whereas your opponent has to cover everything.
Yeah.
And then if your opponent makes one little positional error, it's like, boom, here's 10 Banshees in your face. Or even better, 10 Incubi with your Rain. And if you're playing against a combat army, it fights first. What the hell are you going to do?
Yeah. It's
they are
very, very powerful, I think. And I think they have that. They have a little bit of old phantasm in that it's like, if you try and play, it gets worse. If you don't try and play, you're not playing. And
exactly.
I love it if you don't play. That gives me a lot of momentum in the game as well. And the current lethal intent feels like you can't win against it in as much as there's not like a right thing other than really taking the game to them very aggressively. There's not really a way of managing it. In sort of one-on-ones and tit-for-tat type play, it's just really, really, really good.
I think shoving Eldar is the way.
I agree.
I don't know what I mean is just go. Like, if you sit there and try and play their game, you're gonna lose. Just go for it.
But it was worth saying as well, we were hosted incredibly well. It was such a cool venue to go and see, and it is. I think the way that the polls are sort of at the heart of sort of International 40K is just one of the magical little storylines of it. And this at an event like this, you can absolutely see why, right? The sort of the collaboration between all the top teams, the hosting, the generosity, and the way how hard they work at it as well. I think that was a really interesting. I don't know about you, Alex. Like, it felt like in most of the rounds I was playing against people who were very, very experienced on WTC terrain, like in person, like and that makes a huge
difference.
Yeah,
all of the teams were.
I've played it a lot on TTS. It's not the same thing as just having that sort of innate feel for the board and the experience of the board that I guess we'd have for UK TC, but we just don't have it the same way, right?
So we need more WTC terrain events. That was a tongue twister.
I wonder who does those.
That is what we need, isn't it? More of those.
Great. Who'd run those?
We want them in a couple of weeks, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely. And Josh says punching the elves, that worked for him. Yeah, I think so. I think you just have to overload quite hard into them and put them down very aggressively. Yeah. But I think for more casual players, it's going to feel particularly oppressive for quite a while.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So that was Pyra. Obviously, it was won by the French in the end. I think it was interesting. I think of the top teams, I don't think the top teams there had a sort of sussed out working formula as such. I think France were perhaps closer than others, but I think there were probably things that everyone was trying that didn't work quite as well as people thought it would, and there was odd surprise defeats and losses and results at different rounds. And you could feel how close together the teams actually were, which I thought was really exciting. So for us, definitely some good lessons to take forwards. And it's a shame because you come straight out of it, you're like, oh, I'd love to go and do that again now. And try and do it, try and get it right and do it better. But alas, no immediate opportunity for that. But yeah, I guess as a point of curiosity, Alex, you obviously played Bridgehead for this event. Is it guard for you now, or have you got your eye on something else?
No, I went back up to Loughborough and Colville and dropped off Josh's army this weekend.
Oh.
I am no longer a guard player, thankfully.
Alex.
I don't know what I'm gonna play, but it was fun to play the guard. It was very strong army. Again, I was disappointed I couldn't push anything harder. Maybe shouldn't have said couldn't, but
I think they were considering that they were one of the better prepped armies for the event. Like, people were very ready for them. The fact you were still getting some wins, like decent wins, I think says that as a testament to it being quite strong, right? But I think that is frustrating it is the frustration when people are ready for you in a given environment.
It's like defending lists. Like, if you've got like the big bads in the meta, like Bridgehead at the well, they were big bad, maybe not now because it's a bit more prepped and people have adjusted to them a little bit better. Yeah. But like at the time, they were like, okay, so we need defending lists. You need to play Bridgehead at least for 7 or 8 points, something like that. Do you know what I mean? And if you want to paired that way and have multiple answers to the Bridgehead, it's really hard to actually pair that Bridgehead into a big win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is something you've seen across Pyra, right? There's not someone who's using Bridgehead who's 20-0. Like,
no, it wasn't.
Not just no one
did that well on Bridgehead.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's not just you. It's everyone across Pyra wasn't pushing big wins. So I wouldn't take that as a reflection.
No.
I think that's something that's quite common with Bridgehead right now. So I wouldn't take that too badly.
Yeah, for sure. And it'll be interesting to see where Guard goes and whether there's some evolution in terms of the lists and the outcomes.
A huge nerf.
A huge nerf would be great.
I want to play into my army.
And we want all the armies that I use to get a massive buff. Don't know which one of those are going to be yet. We want all those to buff, and it's going to be great. Like Siege Admiral Task Force.
No, Ed, that's getting nerfed. That's gone.
Siege Admiral's not going to get nerfed.
No, Siege Admiral's going to be absolutely fine. It'll be all right.
Siege will be fine, but all of the other Marine dictionaries, get rid of them.
It's fine. There's multiple ways to use it, mate. I'll show you. I'll show you.
Speaking of Marines, obviously they did take down Manchester. So Manchester was a Blood Angels versus Blood Angels final.
Well,
some very high placings there. And I think what else did we have up there in the top 4 or 5? We had the GSC, the Host of Ascension GSC, which Innes obviously been doing well with. It's interesting to see. I think Marines obviously sitting quite pretty on UKTC and working very well. But again, it was a very close field. It doesn't feel like there was anything wildly out of whack.
I played an RTT this weekend with the Storm Raven.
Yeah.
A version of that Storm Raven list.
How was that?
It was great fun. Broken as hell. And I got absolutely wrecked by Eldar because Aspect Host, 10 Dark Reapers that ignore mods just...
Yeah.
If they go out of the transport and can see the whole board every turn, they just kill the Storm Raven. And that's
they do. But that Reaper brick is very unpleasant.
Oaths are just stupid. They got rid.
Yeah, they're a bit dumb. And the thing is, I think that she just removed the +1 to wound from Ultramarines, and it seems okay. It then seems relatively fine. I mean, the Blood Angel thing is fixed as well, obviously.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, the VA thing, I guess you just take it away because that's probably not what they want, right? They don't want.
It wasn't intended.
It's a very sad state of affairs for Blood Angels to have all these new models and rules and stuff, and you're like, basically just play a load of Assault Intercessors and give them.
Yeah, and there's lists in there with Blood Angels. We saw Arctor get really good at LVO with Inheritors.
But the problem is with non-BA existing, they sort of get overseen, and it's just like,
exactly,
sad,
100%.
So that
Slanesh didn't quite make it. Yeah,
cool. Or +1 to wound on everything.
Sanguine was so cool though. Love the Sanguine.
Well, my one day in Manchester was amazing. I had awesome 3 games with Admech. It was very exciting. But then I went and elected to go play D&D Sunday because we're going to the end of our campaign.
Nice. And what were your learnings for the Admech, Ed?
So I played an Admech Mirror against Haidar, and Haidar is a really good player. He's also a really nice guy. We played a few times.
Yeah.
And he went first, and I was like, I've gone second on Purge. That seems good. And Haidar was smiling like a devious man after he got that first turn roll. And I was like, what? Why are you smiling? And he was like, this is great for me. Like, I've gone first. I was like, but I've gone second in Purge. He's like, I'll show you. And oh my God. He rinsed me. Like, basically, that is now, I understand, purple. Because when it goes first, because basically, Admech don't like being tagged, right?
No.
When you've got like 12-inch move, 2 wound bodies, which you can give a 5 field of pain, and they can advance a charge, you basically have this situation where you go, okay, I've gone first. I'm going to scout all my stuff where I want to go. Then I'm going to charge the bits that you don't charge and tag half of your army with stuff that I don't care about being in combat. Yeah. All my important stuff is sat behind. Then I have to bring out my importance because then half my army's tagged. Then you have to bring out the other half to like shoot the bits that are there. Then he tags the same half again with the next wave, and then shoots your stuff with his stuff. And at that point, you just keep getting tagged and pushed back, tagged and pushed back, tagged and pushed back.
Not good.
And you just go, I actually can't do anything about this. And I was like, there's literally nothing you can do. All I have to do is just roll 4 or 5 inch charges, and then I was winning the game. And I was like, wow, this is insane. So it's a really good, really, really good learning point there. And but the Admech are really good fun, and I really like them. So I think playing against Haidar also kind of did have my number on that one. Because obviously I've only played like 6 games. So he absolutely had a number with that game anyway. I think he just knew how to play that game a lot better than I did because he'd been playing Admech for a few months now, or maybe longer. I don't know. So he understood that matchup a lot better than I did. So hence why when I was like, I've gone second, yay! And I was like, oh no, So that was a really good game. And went and had some food on Saturday, came back, went and played my D&D on Sunday, and had a practice game with my new version of the Admech list.
That's very good. So Admech is your current passion, Ed, right?
I wouldn't say passion. It's one of those things. I use them for 3 games, and I was like, I can see how this is going to be taxing. Basically, after day 1 of an event, because I have that D&D game every Sunday. So sometimes I'll be 3-0, and I'm like, I want to go play. And I'll just go home and have some food and chill, and then play on the Sunday. Play like my game on the Sunday instead. Mm-hmm. Or I like to do is practice game in the morning especially if I've got 3 games in and my list is not right. Like my list was cool, but it wasn't right. Like I already after those 3 games and after I played Haidar as well, I was like I can already see. It was I went into game 3 looking at the blaringly obvious mistakes with the list. So I was like, I know what I want to change, but I can't obviously change it now. So I've just got to play this last game.
Yeah,
have this last game, chill out, because I hit the Blood Angels as well. And I think that was like famously not a great matchup for them. I was like, I'm going to test that because that's a really good test. I'll go see how that goes. Because obviously I was just turning up and testing out the AdBec for the weekend, really. So lots of changes to happen, and I've already got my next list written up, which is really exciting. So
very exciting.
And actually have the army, and it's painted.
And it does feel. It feels maybe a little bit like we're at the tail end of a meta right now. I think there are changes probably not far along.
They're brewing.
We've got the Eldar are just starting to be figured out a little bit, but then also we've got a few of the known entities since Grotmus have probably been a little bit on borrowed time now. They've had a very good run, right? It's probably time for 1 or 2 of those armies to get taken now. We're going to be discussing that on Tuesday's show tomorrow, looking ahead to Balanced Data Slate and what we might like to see. So I won't get into that too much now. But I think in general, that's probably the main notes we wanted to cover today. Very, very fun for you to come and join us on this, Alex. That was very good fun. I was
like,
and nice to natter through it. And I say to reiterate to our teammates that we took out to Pyra, very proud of all of you. We had an amazing time. I was trying not to die, so I wasn't really able to lead that bunch as much as I would have liked. I was basically I had to just stand up, not die, play games, and then go to sleep. But we got through it. And I think it was a really, really good time and a really, really good atmosphere amongst the team. And I think that was what I liked about it. We had some tough games and tough results in places, but no one's head ever dropped. Everyone kept plugging away. Everyone had everyone's back as well. There was never any recriminations or anyone.
Oh, good.
There was absolutely none of that. Like we lost together and won together as a team. I think everyone knew their assignments, and if it went a little bit south, it went a little bit south, and that was awesome to see. And I think that's obviously the kind of team spirit you want and team attitude you want.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No one needs to get crucified for playing a game of 40k. We do that to ourselves. Do you know what I mean? Like if you lose your team in the round, which happens, like you're gonna
that's bad enough, right?
You're gonna beat yourself up. You don't need your team doing it as well, you know.
Exactly. It's very important to just be able to pick yourselves up and go again. And I think it would have been amazing to get a draw out of Poland today. I think we'd been really delighted with our weekend if we managed that.
We were so close.
And it's a big sadness that we got France USA on day 1 when we were still warming up and getting going. But I don't think we were quite in danger of taking results there just yet. But we'll see. So that's it from us, guys. Thanks very much for tuning in. Do hit the old like and subscribe, leave us a comment, and we will of course be back for a live stream tomorrow night where we're going to talk Balanced Data Slate wish listing start. I'm going to list all the armies I've lost to lately and say they all need nerfs. It's going to be great. So we'll see you again soon, and hopefully we'll have Alex back on in the future as well because it's been a lot of fun. So we will see you all again very soon. Bye bye.
Thanks, lads.